Here's some information. You can earn loyalty points at B-Dubs with Blazin' Rewards. And if you hurry, you can earn these points by eating wings, wraps, burgers, and more. Plus, like a QB's top receiver, B-Dubs has the perfect wing sauce pairing for everyone's palate with 21 signature sauces and seasonings. Start earning points with Blazin' Rewards and start earning today. Only at Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings, beer, sports. Please drink responsibly.
Now George struck back. Now George fought back with a magnificent right. That one hurt. So did that. Muhammad Ali was dropped. And another left hand, two left hands. Maldonado was in trouble against the rope. All righty, everybody. Welcome to Zute's Boxing Talk, the boxing show where we bring you sweet science straight up with no twist. And how's everybody doing out there this evening, Monday, March the 26th, 2018? And we have a packed show for you this evening. We'll be talking to a couple of very young fighters, Christian Carto and Derek Cole, and also Marcus Luck, the manager of the best kept secret in boxing. And we'll also be talking with a fighter who is in the shoes of being a young prospect and is still a young fighter, Chris Pearson, and trying to get back on track. He just had a big fight and a big victory in March, so we'll be discussing that as well. Call-in number is the call-in number is 914-803-4446. And, yep, that's a good way to start the show. So let's talk a little bit about the heavyweight division and the big fight of the weekend. HBO picked up this fight with Dillian White and Lucas Brown. It was one of those occasions where it wasn't originally on the HBO broadcast, but they picked it up, and we, as the American audience, got to see it. And it was a pretty dominant performance, to say the least, by Dillian White. One of those situations where Brown was game in a couple of the early rounds. He was trying to land his own hard stuff, but he couldn't get out of the way of the punches thrown by White, and he certainly was trying. Brown was trying, but he certainly did not really look like he was up for the challenge in the sense of matching Dillian White with skills. I mean, he's certainly a tough guy, and wound up getting dropped with a vicious left hook. Now, we need to examine what that fight means for the heavyweight division. Obviously, you had the big fight with Deontay Wilder and Louis King Kong Ortiz, where Wilder knocks out Ortiz, and then coming up this weekend on March the 31st. We have Anthony Joshua against Joseph Parker, and everybody wants to see Parker, or rather Joshua and Wilder fight, assuming Joshua wins. But if you look at the messages coming from promoter Eddie Hearn, Anthony Joshua's promoter, and the actions of Anthony Joshua himself, I'm not so sure if they're interested in giving Deontay Wilder a shot. I mean, forget about the fact that that's the fight everybody wants to see, Anthony Joshua and Wilder. That's the fight that's been creating the most buzz on social media. You have so many people who think Wilder will get killed by Joshua. You got a bunch of people who think that Joshua that Wilder will beat Joshua, so to speak. And you have these wars going on in social media where you know this fight is going to do well. The trouble is oftentimes with boxing, the business gets in the way. Eddie Hearn can make a fight with Anthony Joshua fighting Butterbean, and that stadium there in England will sell out. What does he have to gain, Eddie Hearn I'm talking about, by making a fight where Wilder comes over? I mean, he can fight just about anybody. You'll see this fight with Joseph Parker, who is a legitimate challenge. I mean, that's going to do good. We've seen fights with Joshua against lesser opponents, and the stadium was still packed. So, I mean, I don't know. And then I think this is correct. I don't know if this is an erroneous report or not, but the idea that Anthony Joshua has filed a restraining order against Deontay Wilder so he can't enter the ring in the Joseph Parker fight. I mean, I've seen this enough and heard about this enough to feel confident that it's true. And if it is true, wow. I mean, first of all, what would we say about Deontay Wilder if he had a restraining order against any fighter, right? And I mean, basically the gist of the restraining order is Joshua doesn't want Wilder anywhere near the ring after his fight with Parker, which kind of kills any idea of putting any spice. Not that it really needs spice, but to putting any spice into the whole Joshua Wilder fight, because nowadays boxing has really emulated a lot of what the WWE does, where they have the fighters in the ring. I mean, we've seen it with Sean Porter and Thurman, and obviously with the Triple G being announced after Canelo's win against Junior. Adonis Stevenson has done it. A lot of the times the fights don't even manifest anyway, but a lot of times it does. And it makes you wonder how much Deontay Wilder is in Anthony Joshua's head as well. I don't know. I mean, but the other thing is with Dillian White, now he's a player again with a dominant performance. He's been on a roll since beating Joshua. And we, want to see him against tough guys. Wilder is the number one contender in the number one man, and could be a mandatory for White. Rather, sorry, I'm getting a little distracted here. White is the mandatory for Deontay Wilder, and doesn't look like Eddie Hearn is really interested in making a White Wilder fight either. I mean, he wants White and Joshua to fight again, and Deontay Wilder is totally out of the equation. So if you're not a fan of that, and I don't know, I mean, even the really hardcore Anthony Joshua fans got to admit that they'd rather see him fight Wilder than Dillian White, don't they? But if you're not a fan of that scenario, you have to really want Joseph Parker to win Saturday. I mean, now more than ever, after all this nonsense, I'm rooting for Joseph Parker big time because I'm pretty confident Joseph Parker and Deontay Wilder would get made. I'm not sure Joshua or Dillian White are going to fight Deontay Wilder. So let us get a Joseph Parker upset where Wilder and Parker fight each other, and the winner of that fight will be considered the true heavyweight champion. And then Eddie Hearn is kind of like out of the picture, right? Don't even fight Dillian Wade. I mean, this idea of playing cute is sickening. I don't know. I understand we have that business side of it, but I never understand the business side of boxing in a sense where a lot of times what's good for business is not good for the customer, the paying fan. Hard to say that when you look at all the people that go see Joshua fight anyway. But I mean, there is a world outside of boxing rather than in that O2 arena. So I don't know, but it should be a good fight this weekend. We will have a special Parker Joshua preview show on Thursday. So I'm trying to put together a couple of nice panels. We're going to do something similar to what we did with Wilder and Ortiz. We had a panel of fighters and then a panel of writers. So we're going to try to get that together again on Thursday. So we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of good, promising fights that we can get out of the heavyweights, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to think of the actions of Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua. I know if these actions were on the other side of the foot, everybody would be killing Deontay Wilder. I mean, Deontay Wilder, from what I heard, is not even talking about a 50-50 purse anymore. He's willing to take that 40%. So no matter what you say about Deontay Wilder, other than the fact that he's not the greatest fighter technically, he's done a pretty good job of proving everybody wrong. Would never fight Povetkin, right? He wanted to fight Povetkin. Once he gets hit hard, he got no chin. I think he proved that to be false, right? Not willing to go to England to fight Joshua, pricing himself out by asking for 50%. How dare he think he's worth as much as Joshua? All of this nonsense. Wilder's like, all right, well, whatever. Now we're waiting on you. But first, you got to do your business Saturday night and beat Joseph Parker. And the other bit of news that's been dominating the boxing world, which is something that unfortunately has not happened inside the ring, is this Canelo suspension. I said a couple of weeks ago when the story first broke that I wasn't going to really address it because at the time it did not seem like the failed drug test of clenbuterol was serious enough to jeopardize the fight with Triple G, and that obviously has turned out to be incorrect, with Canelo being suspended until April 10th and therefore has to go in front of the Nevada State Athletic Commission, and then we will know the fate of the fight, if you will. It's worth talking about a little bit. So I tried speaking with Bob Bennett. I called Bob Bennett, the the director of the Nevada State Athletic Commission, and Mr. Bennett said that as much as he would love to come on the air and talk to us, since it's an active investigation, he is not allowed to speak on it. Now, I've spoken with Bob over the years. I've had him on this show. Whether or not you always agree with him, I can say he's always been a straight shooter with me. When I've asked him questions, he's given me fair answers, even if it's stuff that I don't always agree with. He has a reason for what he does, and he's not afraid to state it. So couldn't speak on it. We'll see if the decision made is on April 4th. If I can get Mr. Bennett on April 10th, rather, I could get Mr. Bennett on then. I will see about that. But I also heard that if it's a suspension of Canelo, that will certainly go and affect the May 5th date, that Triple G will still fight on that date. So now, I mean, obviously you want to start thinking about possible opponents to fill Canelo's void. I don't think you could come up with anybody that's going to still make this a worthy pay-per-view event on Cinco de Mayo. But you certainly can think of some names. Yeah, I'm sure there's certainly a lot of willing bodies to try and fight Triple G if Canelo is not able to. And how about the comments of Mr. Paulie Malignaggi? If you didn't see that, Paulie Malignaggi's video is all over social media. When questioned about the failed drug test of Canelo Alvarez, he basically said, "You got to be an effing moron if you didn't know Canelo was on something before this failed test. If you didn't know that and you needed this test to tell you that, you don't even deserve to be watching boxing. You should be watching golf." These are Paulie's words, not mine. It's interesting that he should say that. Now, Paulie, I've never seen him be a guy that's been bashful about his opinion, but I wonder if he would have been that outspoken if it was a Showtime fighter that had said that. Maybe he would have. But the other thing is, why wait? I mean, if this is what you think, I mean, this is the sport you love, and why wait to say something about Canelo now? If you know more than anybody else, share your wisdom with us, Paulie. Why not? If I say any more, I'll get in trouble, is what else he said. I mean, you're really worried about getting in trouble? You don't strike me as that type. So I don't know. And obviously, the other piece of it is that everybody's choosing. So Canelo is just the one that got caught. Canelo is probably the top dog in the sport right now in terms of money making and clout and all of that. So if he gets caught and he gets suspended where he loses a big payday, hopefully that's a wake-up call for the rest of the sport. Who knows? I mean, cheaters are always going to try and cheat. I mean, that's across the board in sports, in politics, in academics. It's just the nature of being a human being. But the powers that be have an obligation to be as honest and as efficient as they can when trying to identify cheaters. And it sounds like everything I've been reading that it's pretty clear cut that tainted meat is not the reason for this foul drug test. But we certainly have to wait and see what the investigation says. But Canelo Alvarez suspended until April the 10th. And then we'll find out after that if he will be fighting Triple G on May the 5th. And Triple G was also pretty outspoken about it as well. But who knows? But let's move forward on this date in boxing history. Let's move to that segment before we get to all of these guests that are scheduled for the show. And I picked out a bunch of fights that included Hall of Fame fighters, some interesting nuggets, a couple of things I did not know. Maybe you did when I share it. You say, oh, yeah, I knew that. Well, okay, if you did, you're going to hear it anyway. So on this date in 1945, a fight that there's no footage of, Jake LaMotta KOs George Costner in 6 rounds. And why do I highlight this fight? Because when I was looking through it, it said that there was a possible no knockdown call. Jake LaMotta possibly was knocked down in the first round of this fight with George Costner, and it was not called a knockdown, and it costed Costner in the round. LaMotta took control in the second and subsequently stopped Costner in 6. But according to what I read, LaMotta got off to a slow start in that first round and possibly was dropped, and the referee did not call it. This is pretty significant because Jake LaMotta is, and we talked about the Raging Bull in the movie that, I don't want to say made Jake LaMotta famous, but it certainly made more people aware of who Jake LaMotta was. One of the big things was his dynamite iron chin. You never got me down, Ray. You never got me down, from which I understand he never actually said to Ray Robinson in the fight. But anyway, you get the idea. I mean, even though most people don't know this, but it's true that years later, towards the end of his career, Jake LaMotta was officially knocked down. But in 1945, to get knocked down and not called, a pretty big deal. And yes, as I try and do every show, I link this event to my favorite fighter and who I think the best fighter of all time is. Marvelous Marvin Hagler. There is a knockdown of him on record. Juan Roldan is credited for knocking the Marvelous one down. And it was a clear slip that referee Tony Perez blew in the first round of their fight. So LaMotta might have gotten knocked down, and the referee missed the call. Hagler gets called for being knocked down, and the referee missed the call. So there you go. Now, this is another fight that was interesting. On this date in 1952, Chuck Davies stops Ike Williams in 7 rounds. Two all-time great fighters. I mean, I've seen whatever footage there is out there of Ike Williams, and he's tremendous. And Chuck Davies, everything I've read about him, is certainly a very good, if not great, fighter. The interesting nugget about this fight is on Box Records says that Ike Williams threw the fight. He claimed he threw the fight. Now, this is conflicting with other things I've read about Ike Williams. I've read that Ike Williams had been approached to throw several fights during his career. Back in the good old days, when fighters were forced to throw fights to advance. Those good old days, we want them back, right? But I always read that Ike Williams refused every advance of throwing a fight and wound up losing the fights that he refused to throw anyway, and he expressed regret on that. But here on Box Record says that Ike Williams claimed to have thrown the fight against Chuck Davies. I don't know. Conflicting reports are nothing new, especially in the sport of boxing. But that's a fight that, as far as I know, there's no footage of. If there is, I would love to see it. But in 1952, Chuck Davies officially gets a stoppage in 7 rounds over the great Ike Williams. And on that undercard, Georgie Benton stops Moises Ward in 5 rounds. And Georgie Benton, he's the guy that now will do the reverse here, Everybody accuses me of always being the reverse old man card, giving too much credit to today's fighters in the sport today as compared to, yesteryear. And, sorry, that's kind of a message there I had to address. And Georgie Benton is a fighter, I think, that would have clearly benefited from the plethora of world titles there are to win out there. As fine a boxer as you would ever want to see Georgie Benton. Unfortunately, there's not much footage of him to see, but what you can see is a lot of it on YouTube. I mean, catch it. This guy would have been a fighter who would have won a world title if world titles were easier to come by. As a black fighter back in the 50s, early 50s, it probably wasn't as easy. I mean, he's most known for his loss to Rubin Carter, but he was much better than that. And he fights and gets a big victory on the undercard of Davey and Ike Williams. Now, let's fast forward now to 1974. On this date in 1974, Big George Foreman stops Ken Norton in 2 rounds. Now, obviously, the thrashing of Joe Frazier to win the title was already there, in case you forgot.
Angie Dundee, Ali's trainer, right next to me is saying it. You may hear him. Down goes Frazier! Down goes Frazier! Down goes Frazier! The heavyweight champion is taking the mandatory 8 count, and Foreman is as poised as can be in a neutral corner.
But when Ken Norton fought Foreman, he was considered a little bit more prime than Smokin' Joe was. He obviously beat Ali in the famous broken jaw fight. Then we get this fight here where Foreman destroys Norton in 2 rounds, and that really advanced. From what I understand, I wasn't around at the time. I was like 2 years old. That this fight really heightened the cloak of invincibility for George Foreman. It really put fear in the hearts and minds of Muhammad Ali fans. How is Muhammad Ali going to survive this fight against Big George Foreman? Look at what he did to Ken Norton, the guy who gave him so much trouble. Well, it's a great example styles making fights for sure. How you cannot put all your eggs into the common opponent basket, if you will. Sometimes it works out. Sometimes you could pick things up based on trouble one fighter got from another fighter. But in this case, obviously, the Rumble in the Jungle, uh, George Foreman could not solve the rope a dope style. Ali survived the early onslaught of Foreman, if you will, and laid back on those lazy boy ropes and tired George Foreman out. I still maintain it would have been a different fight had the ropes not been so loose, and I still maintain that referee Zach Clayton is probably on record for the fastest 10 count of all time in that fight. But still, the fact that Ali was able to do what he did against a guy who was seen as probably one of the real killers the sport has ever seen is still a pretty phenomenal accomplishment. So that's our this date in history. When we come back, we will have on Christian Carto. Alrighty, welcome back to Zute's Boxing Talk, the boxing show where we bring you sweet science straight up with no twists. And remember to follow the show on thegruelingtruth.net and go to thegruelingtruth.net for all of your sports fixes, and also go to maxboxing.com for some fantastic boxing articles. Now, our first guest is a professional fighter who sports a record of 14-0 with 11 KOs from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He fights in the bantamweight division at the tender age of 21. We're talking about none other than Christian Carto. Welcome to the show, Christian.
Hey, how you doing? It's nice to be here.
I'm doing fabulous, and thank you for your time. And Christian, you're listed as 21. The first thing I said is I question that age. Are you sure you have the right birth certificate? Because you look like you're about 15 years old.
Yeah, I'm 21.
All righty, good stuff. Thank you for clearing that up. I wanted to make sure that you are legitimate, and you certainly are legitimate. You have already a good backing, a fantastic record. Talk a little bit about how you got into boxing and what led to your decision to turn pro.
I started boxing when I was 8. Boxing, and then I kind of just followed him up the gym. And then, I was playing hockey at the time too. Stopped playing hockey when I was 16. I just started getting better and better at boxing. And I went to the Olympic trials and I got a bronze medal. And then me and my team just thought it was time to turn pro. And then we turned pro in July of 2016. July of 2016.
All righty. Well, you mentioned something interesting about the hockey. In playing hockey, was there anything that you picked up from hockey that helped you with your boxing? Because there's a lot of balance involved in hockey.
I would say just my toughness and maybe my balance and using my body. I think that's kind of just, and like the agility maybe.
Now we're talking about two sports, boxing and hockey, that a lot of people think of, obviously, violence, fights, especially boxing. Were you the type of kid that, when growing up, got into a lot of fights?
I didn't really. I mean, everybody kind of knew I was a boxer where I was from, so I didn't really get in any fights. Not that I didn't get in any fights. I didn't get in too many fights. I got in maybe like one fight in high school, and that was really it, though.
Now, you mentioned you turned pro on July 2nd, 2018 against Rakeem Parker. Talk a little bit about that. How different was it, your first professional fight, compared to the fights you had in the amateurs? It was a 4-round fight. You stopped your opponent in 3. Compare and contrast a little bit of the amateur style, what your amateur background meant to you in turning pro.
The amateurs, it was good. It was a real good learning experience. My last, like, 10 or 12 amateur fights were without headgear, so it was kind of like a smooth transition going into the pros. I guess the training was a lot different. Not a lot different, but it was just more rounds and putting more time in, and like getting proper rest. That was kind of it, though. It was a pretty good transition.
Alrighty, now there isn't a lot of footage of you on YouTube. There are a few fights. Watching you, you look like a very solid technical fighter with a very strong right hand. But there were a couple of fights early in your career when you fought guys like Christopher Nelson and Jonathan Hernandez, where they were really tall, lanky lefties, not ideal with trying to work your jab. So if you look at those fights, you really didn't have much of a jab. But in some of your later fights against orthodox fighters, we saw more of a working jab, more technical skills. Going into those fights against those long, lanky lefties, were you aware of that style? Because I know a lot of times early on, you don't even know what your opponent looks like until you step into the ring with him.
Yeah, them two fights we actually mentioned, I didn't really get to see any tape of them. And it was like they were just kind of awkward, but then once I kind of got their timing down, I could land my punches. Now I'm starting to throw my jab more. Like then, I had a good jab, but I just didn't use it as much as I should have. But now I'm just using it all the time.
Yeah, definitely. In some of the later fights we definitely saw a much more working, effective jab, if you will. Now, when you fought those guys were murder to fight. That style, tall, lanky lefties, you did very good. You obviously hurt them, and you showed great power. But that style is a headache. Did you say, what are you guys doing to me? Why are you matching me up with this style so early in my career?
Yeah, no, I didn't say that, but it was, I don't know. I mean, it wasn't like a very hard fight, and I mean, I think it was a good fight for me, like from the management part.
Yeah, definitely prove that you can be effective and hurt a guy with such a difficult style. So that part of it is true. So talk a little bit about, for some of the fans who might not have seen you fight. I mean, I'm describing you a little bit. I think your bread and butter is that right hand, but you certainly showed that you can be effective behind the jab. Talk a little bit about yourself and your style. Describe it for the fans.
I think I'm a boxer puncher. I box and use my jab a lot. And once I try to set up my shots, and once I land a good shot, when I have the opportunity to take you out, that's what I kind of try to do.
All righty. Now, in 2007, you had a lot of fights, and in your last couple of fights, 2017 rather, right? You had a lot of fights, and in your last couple of fights, you went the 8-round distance. You fought a lot of rounds. You got really rolling in 2017. Talk a little bit about that calendar year and what that meant to you and how it has helped you grow as a fighter.
Well, I feel like after every fight I was getting better and I was learning from every fight. And, we were just, it was kind of fun after fights. I was in the gym. I mean, I was always in the gym, though. Even now I'm still in the gym. I had a layoff. It was December 1st to March 2nd, I think it was. And, I was still in the gym. I was in the gym a week later after that fight. So I was always in shape. And then them fights went to 8 rounds, but I feel like I won every round of them fights. And, it was a good learning experience to go to rounds. And I felt good going to rounds, too.
Yeah, I mean, stamina is obviously a major issue for every boxer. The rounds and the minutes that you go, most human beings cannot handle. 3 minutes will feel like 2 hours for a lot of us. Talk a little bit about how you handled it stamina-wise going the full 8 rounds.
I felt real good in it. I didn't get tired at all. I didn't really get tired. I did a lot. I sparred over 100 rounds in the last camp. And, I felt good. I didn't get, I was just running a lot and sparring a lot and training a lot. And I didn't get tired.
All righty. Now, Christian, talk a little bit about some of the boxers. I mean, as a youngster, 21, it'll be a lot different from a guy like my age growing up watching fighters. But obviously, you've been around boxing all your life. You started boxing at a very young age. Who are some of the boxers that you have admired over the years?
I watch a lot of Danny Garcia. I watch a lot of Floyd Mayweather. I can watch a lot of fights. Every time fights are on, I'm watching them. And I'm just if I see something a fighter does, I like to try to take it and put it into my game and try to use it like that.
All righty. Now, coming out of Philadelphia, how aware are you of the great boxing tradition in Philadelphia? I mean, it's just a great city overall, but a great boxing city. Were you aware of that? And if so, at what age did you realize what you're? I mean, you're in the city where the Rocky statue is. It doesn't get better than that.
Yeah, I knew boxing was real big in Philadelphia. There's a lot of world champions. And, my grandfather was in the top 10 in the 1940s. And my uncles were good boxers too, professional boxers. My great uncles. And, I kind of knew about that too.
All right, good stuff. Now talk about a little bit about your team, your management team, your trainers. How confident are you in them working the corners of your fight? You look like a really tight-knit group in the fights that I have seen. Talk a little bit about what your training team means to you.
Yeah, my trainer, his name is Mickey Rosati. His trainer is 15. We're pretty close. He's a good trainer, a real good trainer. Helps me a lot. And my manager, Frankie Carto, that's my brother too. He does everything. He gets me sponsors. He helps train me. He picks the fights. He's a real good man. He's a great manager. And we're all and my dad, he helps sell the tickets, and he's with me every day. And we're gonna a tight circle.
Yeah, and I think I saw Joey I, the cut man, in the corner of a fight or two of yours. Is he still with him?
Yeah. Joey I works the cuts for me, and he's a good guy too.
Yeah, I've had him on the show. Yeah, I've had him on the show a bunch of times. Probably the best cut man in boxing, and doesn't get the recognition from it, I think, outside of Philadelphia. But has Joey had to earn his money, so to speak, with you? Have you had any major cuts in any of your fights yet?
No, I haven't been cut yet, but he helps. He helps me. He puts I didn't really have too much swelling, but I know he could do his job real good, so that's why we have him with us.
Without a doubt, yes, indeed. Now, talk about the training, Christian. What part of the training do you like the most? What part of the training are you like, oh, man, I know I got to do this, but I wish there was a better way?
I like. I guess I don't mind any of the training. Honestly, I like training. I like doing the running. I guess the dieting is not the best part, but it's a part of the sport, and I don't really mind it either. So, I like all of it.
All right, now as a bantamweight, talk a little bit about that weight class. You comfortable making this weight as a young kid? Do you see yourself maybe in a year or two moving up? That happens a lot with the young fighters. They fill out a little bit more. Or do you think bantamweight will be your home for the next few years?
I make the weight pretty easy right now. I don't really know what the future holds, but I make the weight pretty easy. I'm going to be at 118 for as long as my body lets me.
And your next fight, according to BoxRec, which is not always correct, so I want to make sure, your next scheduled fight is April the 28th in Philadelphia. There is no opponent announced yet. Is the date accurate? And if so, do you know of a potential opponent?
I don't know the opponent, but the date is accurate.
Alrighty, now has that been something that you've dealt with a lot, where you have to wait and see? All right, I'm fighting, but I'm not sure quite against who, or have you had the opportunity to know who your opponent is going to be and be able to study their style a little bit? Have you had that benefit yet?
Like maybe my first or second or third fight with the opponent late, but every other fight we kind of had it within, we had it for a while. Like my last couple fights, my last 3 fights, we had it with over a month. Maybe 2 months actually.
How much time and energy do you spend wanting to know the style of your fighter? I've talked to guys who, Regis Prograis, for example, he says he never looks at any film of anybody he fights. He's more concentrating on what he has to do. Then I know other fighters who say they really want to study their opponent and look for weaknesses. What's your approach?
I like to watch my opponent and see what he does good and what he doesn't do good. I watch it. I go watch the same fight 15 times maybe of them, and it's not. I'm not going to change my training up for him. I'm going to just see what he does and what I can capitalize on his weakness and stuff, and make a little adjustments in camp. But it's just I got to train to kind of be the best me, and go in and fight and just kind of do what I do.
So far as a professional, Christian, has there been a style that you're more comfortable in fighting? We've seen you against these tall, lanky movers. You fight guys who come right at you, brawling, face first, dangerous bully goats, so to speak, who lead with their head. Or is it all just you're still all learning? Is there one particular style that you felt more comfortable against fighting?
No, not really. I think I could fight and adjust to any type of fighter that I fight.
Now, talk a little bit about your short-term goals. Obviously, every boxer's dream is to get a title shot. But what are some short-term goals for Christian Carto?
My goals are just really to just focus on my next fight and win that fight and look good winning it. That's really it. I want to win a world title, but I'm taking one fight at a time.
All right, good approach. Excellent answer. Not that if you had another answer it would be bad, but one fight at a time always seems to work out for the most focused boxers. Can you put a number on how many times you would like to fight in 2018 since you fought so much last year?
I'm not really sure. I gotta just, like I said, just take one fight at a time and let my brother and my trainer and them talk, and let them figure it all out. Training in good shape.
Up until now, Christian, what would you say was your toughest fight and why?
My toughest fight Maybe my last 2 fights, I guess, I would say. My last fight was against James Smith, 12-1, from Detroit. He was good, and he came forward a lot. And, even though I won every round, he kept coming every round. He was good, and the kid before that was pretty good, too.
All righty, thank you for that. Now, this is a question I ask all boxers that come on the show for the first time. Since you're so young, it should be a little interesting. But I ask you to put on your fantasy fighter hat, if you will. If there's one fighter that you could go back in time and test your skills against, who would it be? And let's say in the future, who would you want to test your skills against the most moving forward, an active fighter?
I don't really have anybody that I would go back and test my skills, but I would like to go maybe watch Jeff Chandler in person. Or actually, I'd like to go watch my grandpa in person and fight. And in the future, who I would like to fight, I don't want to call anybody out. I don't need to call anybody out. Time will tell, and that's really it. That's kind of it.
All righty, thank you for that. Christian, anything that you want to say in closing? Talk a little bit about how fans could see the fight. Talk a little bit about maybe some social media that you want to plug. Thank you for your time, and now's the time for some closing remarks.
You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Christian_Carto, and Twitter and Instagram, follow me all. And I just want to thank you for having me on the show, too. And that's it.
Thank you so much, and definitely would like to have you on again as your career moves forward. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for giving us some of your time, and you have a good rest of your evening.
All right, thank you, too. Have a good night.
Thank you. All righty, so Christian Carto, this guy is a very popular fighter in Philadelphia. He is certainly moving up the ranks in terms of getting attention. And he's being moved along nicely. I mean, the guys he's fighting, if you look at the list of the records on BoxRec, especially lately, not too many fighters with like real stinker records, like 3-15 or something like that. James Smith was a good test for him, went the 8 rounds and won. On virtually all scorecards, Steve Weisfeld scored that fight 79-73. He scored a shutout on the other 2 cards, I should say. And Smith, is a guy who's not considered, a pushover. So good stuff there. Thank you for your time, Christian. And we're going to take a quick break and get, hopefully, Marcus locked in their own coal hunt right after this.
Odious, contemptible, deplorable. I'm speaking of offending in the personal grooming arena. Something I would, of course, consider quite beyond the pale. So I give you a new Right Guard Sports Stick, antiperspirant and deodorant. When one needs to seek maximum protection and a fresh new scent, one should grab oneself one of these Right Guard Sports Sticks, because one would hate to be considered malodorous by one's chums. Now, wouldn't one? New Right Guard Sports Sticks from Gillette. Anything less would be uncivilized.
Alrighty, thank you, and welcome back to Zute's Boxing Talk. And my next couple of guests are, well, first we have the young pugilist George Correll, who is 9-0 with 8 KOs, fighting out of the featherweight division and referred to as the best kept secret in boxing. And his manager, Marcus Luck, is joining us as well. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
How you doing?
How you doing?
Doing excellent. How you guys doing tonight?
Just finishing up a workout. We're feeling good.
All righty. Thank you for that. So, Marcus, let's start with you. Talk a little bit about what you do. You're listed as Drew's manager. So talk a little bit about what you do in terms of the sport of boxing and how you and Drew got connected.
Well, I'm his promoter, actually, promoter trainer. I'm an ex-fighter myself. I've been knowing Drew since he was about, 8, 9 years old. I was the athletic director of the Boys and Girls Club, and he was a kid there, which he knew I was a fighter. So he was very interested in fighting for a couple of years, which he actually followed me around, called me, and I kept aborting him because I didn't ever think he was serious. So he went and started trying to train somewhere, and we got back up a couple of years later, and I got to the gym he was at, and it was more of a fitness center. They won't teach him anything, so I got in the ring with him, and, I mean, he just came at me full throttle. I'm like, okay, little kid got some spunk. He ain't trying to fight, you know. So just slowly but surely, he ended up getting up with him, and ever since then, man, he's just been growing. He's really a student to the game, and he's listening to everything I say. He came in getting beat up in the gym, but everyone who touched him up in the gym then, he surpassed them, and now he's laying hands on them.
All righty, thank you. And Drew, I have not seen you fight, but you have been described as a tall fighter, southpaw who can punch. Talk a little bit about yourself a minute. Describe your fighting style. And since I haven't seen you fight, what fighter can you say, if you were to compare yourself to a fighter, who would you compare yourself with?
Different variety. I like Louis Collazo, Lamont Peterson, Winky Wright. You know, I got different little varieties of all of them in me, to be honest with you. You know, I can box, punch, bang, whatever please the crowd.
All righty. Now talk a little bit about your background in boxing, some fighters that you have admired growing up, and what decision led to you turning pro? What did you know about yourself that said, you know what, I'm going to become a professional fighter?
Well, the crazy thing is I never really wanted to turn pro. I just wanted to do amateur. But, you know, I did so good with amateur, I said we're going to go ahead and turn pro. And, you know, just, you know, with the business, the things are a little different with the business of boxing. You know, it's different than amateurs. But, you know, so we've been, you know, going here and there. So hopefully we can be a little bit more active this year.
Now, talk a little bit about that business side of it, because I hear people tell me compared to the amateurs, the in terms of corruption and dirtiness, the pros is much better than the amateurs in terms of that aspect of it. Can you speak on that?
Well, with pro, you know, it's more about what can you do for me, you know, about your marketability and stuff like that and what you bring into the table. And, you know, right now, if certain fighters might, you know, dodge fights and stuff like that, or it might not be the right time for, you know, for certain fights, if the risk ain't worth the reward. So you just basically got to know the business of it, you know. It's a lot of talent around, but if you're not marketable, you know, you might be overshadowed, you know. So at the end of the day, like I said, it's a business, and you got to be able to know what to take with it.
All right. Now let's talk about what you actually did as an amateur. Talk a little bit about your amateur background and how that helped you in becoming a professional fighter. What did you learn from the amateurs?
Well, with the amateurs, you know, it's more on the point system. You know, we did the Commonwealth, we did the Golden Glove. You know, it's more of a point system. You know, it's different than the pros and stuff like that. You know, we fighting for free. And, you know, it's more harder than it, and then like that, and everybody know each other. You know, it's just more hard with amateur. I tell anybody, I think amateur is harder than pro. You know what I mean? Because you come in to fight for free. And a pro, you might have somebody that's coming for a fight for a check.
All righty. Thank you for that. Now, Marcus, you said you are the promoter. So talk a little bit about what it's like to be a promoter. I mean, we have these giant promotional companies, Top Rank, Golden Boy. Talk a little bit about how you work as a promoter. I mean, you're on a smaller scale, but you certainly have, your own niche, so to speak. Talk about what's the hardest thing about competing with those big companies.
The hardest thing is just pretty much sponsorship and backing. They eat up TV time. When you talk to people and you're trying to bring your fighters up, and especially being in Virginia. I promoted Virginia, North Carolina. I mean, it's somewhat frowned upon at times. But you have fighters here who's really competing on the upper level now. But when you starting off, you're trying to, get these fighters rolling and stuff, and the area you're in is not boxer friendly right now. It's different from Russell Peps in Philly. Who in Philly don't like boxing? You're in New York. When you DeBella, I mean, everybody. It's just more of a boxing town. Down here you got to pretty much build the fighters, let people get to know who the fighters are. So, but talent level, I don't see any difference. I mean, you have guys who come to fight, and you have guys who come to lay down in every area you come in. The biggest obstacle for me is there are 100 gyms in that area when there's 2 gyms in this area. So we do a lot of traveling to get the competition. Correll's been in the ring. He sparred with Hank Lundy. He sparred with Gervonta Davis. He was Gervonta's sparring partner for the Pedraza fight. He just sparred Toka Khan, getting him ready for his fight. We've been in the ring with legit people. We held our own. I mean, right now it's just a markability factor of getting him out there to be on a bigger scale. I've been dealing with CES boxing with my heavyweight. I'm going to let Drew fight up on one of those cards. Me and Marsha Kaufman had talked to get Drew up to fight on the King's promotion card up in Pennsylvania. So, right now, I just wanted to keep him quiet because, like I told him, the bigger your name is, the more money it's gonna cost your opponents. It's just on a higher scale, So when you're competing with trying to bring somebody in for $1,500 and you got the bigger promotions paying them $3,000, it's just harder on you in your pockets to get the opponents in for the level you want to make your guys compete on.
Now, you said you're also Drew's trainer?
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that. That seems like a big juggling act for me. I can't envision Bob Arum in the corner with a towel giving instructions. Talk a little bit about how you're able to split time between being a promoter and a trainer.
Well, I have a wife that really loves me and understands the business, and she put up with it. But, it's hard, You're in the gym in the mornings. You're in the gym in the evenings. In between the gym time, you're promoting. At night, you're back promoting. You got to overlook everything, And not just Drew. I work with numerous fighters. I know you're familiar with Giuseppe Cusimano, the heavyweight, up-rising heavyweight. I'm his trainer. He's 14-1 with 13 knockouts, I believe, 12 knockouts. He's
getting a lot of
right
attention
now. Yes, he's getting a lot of attention at the moment, I have a cruiserweight who's 11-1. I have a super middleweight who's 8-0, and I have numerous other fighters in my camp. So, my gym stays active, So that's the good part. I got enough fighters to give each other work and do things sometimes when I need to go promote. But it's just about beating the streaks, man. You just got to stay hungry. You got to grind. You got to get out there and work hard.
All righty. Now, if you can answer this, please do. Is there one particular quality? What's the number one quality you look for in a youngster or maybe somebody who's a little older that you would want to take on and train?
That I would like to take on and train?
Yeah, is there a particular thing that you look for? Like, all right, I know he's going to be somebody I could work with because he has this quality. Do you look at it like that?
Not really. Most of my fighters, I've developed them from scratch. So we have a relationship. We have a family relationship, you know. I just want every fighter to trust me, you know. If you can trust me, I mean, if I tell you close your eyes, do a back fist and land a punch, I mean, the trust is everything in a fight, you know. Everything a fighter don't see, everything a cornerman see. You know, they just got to trust you and try it out, and they see things work, you know. When you're dissecting a fight, everybody don't see what you see. You know, you got to work on certain things. You got to have certain arsenal that you're ready to pull at the drop of a dime. If I say it, you know what I mean? It's like working a video game. I'm at the controller, and you're the character. You know, when I'm calling stuff out, I like to see it. You got to trust me and be able to do it. So, me personally, I think, you know, you got to get a bond with each and every fighter, you know, and you got to work with each fighter different. Some you can holler, you can fuss, you can get on. Some you got to pamper, you got to baby, you know. It's just you got to understand the fighter. That's the biggest thing I feel. Understanding and trust between each other.
All righty, thank you. And Drew, talk a little bit about those sparring sessions. A lot of big names out there that you have been in the ring with in sparring. Davis is a great young star. Talk a little bit about some of those sparring sessions that you've had.
Well, you know, I sparred a lot of top amateurs and prospects too. I learned from different. More with Javante, you know, just more we were in different levels, you know, on you know, just competing with each other. That was a little war right there, you know. He do hit hard like they say he do, you know. That wasn't no lie right there. But, you know, it's been plenty of other guys, you know, I sparred, even dudes that people wouldn't probably know about, you know, that don't have names, you dig? So, even with Hank Lundy, I learned a lot. So I learned from all different type of them. Like I said, styles make fights, you know, and I soak from all of them. I still learn from everything and stuff like that, so.
All righty, thank you. Now, it says that you have not had a fight since November of 2016. Is that accurate? And if so, why the long layoff?
Yes, sir. Well, just family activities and things like that. You know, we still was training and stuff like that, and you know, we definitely trying to make up for that time lost. You know, this year and stuff like that. If we can hopefully get like 5 or 6 in this year, you know, that'll be perfect. You know, but we stay in the gym 24/7, so that's no ring rust at all on that part.
All righty, good stuff there. Now, you probably could speak about this a little bit more when you get back into action, but we often hear that even if you're in the gym and sparring all the time, nothing can replace professional fight. Nothing can replace getting into that ring and fighting, you know, for the real deal, so to speak. I mean, what do you think of that statement, and why do you think so many fighters say that? What's missing that you don't get? I mean, you're in the gym sparring all the time. What's the major difference? The mental pressure?
No, I mean, you can say that, but like at the end of the day, like you said, it's all mentally. I think if a fighter put that in his head, you know, then that's in his head. I think if you don't put that in your head, it's not there. So with my mindset, that's not in my head.
You know.
Now, when you are fighting, Drew, and you are working and you have your trainer in between rounds, what is the most important? And you know, looking at you only had like one or two fights to go past 3 rounds anyway. But what are you looking for the most from a trainer when you get back into the corner? Is it you know, something to keep you motivated, a rah-rah speech, so to speak, or is it something technical, you know, direct instruction? What do you think you benefit from more?
Well, when we go back to the corner, my main thing is let me know what I'm doing wrong. You know, go ahead and criticize me and stuff like that, because my whole thing is I need to know what I'm not looking good at. You know, I don't care if I look good out of 9 things. Tell me that one thing to make it 10, you know. So, because like I said, one mistake can change the whole fight around. And
Marcus, as a trainer and as a former fighter yourself, but as a trainer first, how do you know? Because it sounds like you do both. How do you know when to be the rah-rah guy, and how do you know when to give specific, direct instruction to a fighter?
I mean, it depends on the fighter. That's one thing I love about Drew. I can come in and say, listen, do this, do that. He'll say no more. Or I say, this is what the opponent's doing. Let's work on this. See, watch this, watch that. He adapts really quick because our relationship. It's very seldom I have to be a rah-rah with him. Other fighters, they need that pep. They need that step because everybody on it is confident as they self when they enter the ring. And that's the main thing we look on. How do you feel in the round? What did you see? I like to discuss with my fighters. How is his power? How is his speed? How can you adjust to this? Okay, now from there, if you feel like he's too fast, okay, let's work on this. If you feel like he got a little pop, okay, let's adjust to this. We have a more communication in the ring. You know what I'm saying? It's not me just coming in, rah, 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 because sometimes you can discourage fighters like that. And then sometimes it can lift a fighter. You got to understand your fighter as well, But my thing is about, I'm watching the other fighter, seeing what he's trying to do, what something that he's concentrating on too much. He's making the same movement. He's doing this. This is his reactions to certain things. If you do this, he react that way. Okay, let's put this third and fourth punch together. So it's just about dissecting the fight as it goes along, round by round.
Now, what about what else is going on in your corners, Drew? Sometimes we see fights on TV and there's 2-3 people talking to the fighter at once. Is that something that you allow, or do you want to be the only voice talking to your fighter?
No, I did not allow any of that. I'm very stern with my cut. Well, I'm a cut man too. So, but my seconds and stuff, you're here to do a job. Put your spit bucket in, pull stuff out, get out of the way. I don't allow no one to talk in the ring because you're not in the gym every day. He's not listening to you. My fighters are trained to listen to my ear, and my voice. That's all they listen to, my voice. I can say something, and I like to see the commands done. So, I don't like confusion in the corner. I let everyone know, listen, you got something. If you see something, speak to me, and we'll see it, and we'll talk to Drew. But I'm the only one speaking in the corner.
All righty. Thank you for that. And as a fighter, what was the most valuable information, or what did you learn the most from your trainers?
The only thing, the main thing in fighting is conditioning, mentally, physically, and emotionally. You got all that goes on in the ring, At one point, someone in the fighter feel broken, you know what I'm saying? It's the one who's going to keep fighting, Everybody get tired. It's how fast you recover, So my conditioning with my guys, my mental state I put them in, I want you to feel like, when you go in this ring, this is the best you possibly can be. Anything you want to do, you're capable of doing it. So, I just like to bring out this tough, hard conditioning, mental conditioning, physical conditioning, emotional conditioning. In the ring, you're fighting for your life. So, it's life or death in there. And we going for blood.
All righty. Now, Drew, you were listed as a southpaw. You a natural southpaw?
Yes, sir.
Any encouragement ever to turn you around?
Oh, no. We stay in southpaw, and I'm not just a featherweight. I actually make 122 super bantamweight.
Oh, okay. That's going to be my next question. Moving forward, what weight class do you anticipate fighting?
Well, right now I still can make 122. If it's the right fight, I actually think I can. We have a right camp. I actually think I can make 118. To my body feel in. We cool to jump into 122 to 126, then 130. Then for my height, I actually can fight up to 135.
All righty, and tell us some of your short-term goals, Drew.
You said my short-term goals?
Yeah, what short-term goals do you want to, say, in next couple of months or this year?
Well, we trying to fight it. We trying to fight in May. If we can get in April, like I said, we're back in the gym right now. We trying to fight on the same card as Joe Cusimano in Rhode Island in Providence, May the 11th. Then maybe come back around again. But like I said, I'm trying to I'm trying to fight as much as 6 times this year. I'm trying to make up for that time lost ASAP.
Sounds good. Now, Marcus, let's put our promoter hat on for a minute. I've talked to a lot of people, and they say you have to be absolutely crazy to want to become a boxing promoter. All the headaches that come with it, all the fees that you have to pay. Talk a little bit about what you have to go through as a promoter.
And that's the funny part, you know. Fighters see promoters making millions. You come in, you see a big crowd, you're like, oh, my God, how much money he made. I mean, the headache that you're going through. I mean, you're going 4 months of promotion, dealing with fighters, you know, fights falling out, making sure medicals are done, making sure travel arrangements are correct, making sure hotel arrangements are correct, you know, fighters getting on the card, pulling out the card. Now, you know, it's a serious headache, you know. People think, the promoter, no, man, the promoter do more work than anyone. You have to have a strong team. You got to have a street team. You got to have, in every aspect of the game, man, you got to have somebody babysitting. Let's say you got 10 fights on the card. That's 20 fighters you're babysitting. You know, it's like babysitting 20 people, and none of them live in the town you live in. So you calling, you making phone calls, you setting up medicals, you setting up transportation, you making sure he got this, you make sure he get this paperwork in, make sure this paperwork in. You going through it with your commission. You know what I mean, it's just a big. It's just you can't describe the headache you go through. You know, this fighter got sick, this fighter guy fell out. I mean, all the way up until the first bell, you never come until that first bell go off for the fight night.
Oh, you just confirm everything I've heard in the past. So I'll ask you this, Marcus. I've asked other promoters that do promotions on smaller shows, so to speak, and I say, what advice would you have for somebody who wants to get into this business to be a promoter? And they all tell me, go do something else. That's the advice I could give you. Do you have a different answer?
Hey, I'll tell anybody, man, you sure you want to do this? Listen, I was told once, you want to know how to make $1 million doing promotions? Start with $2 million, and by the time you lose $1 million, stop, and you made $1 million.
So is it that, is money that much of a factor? Do you need to have a decent amount of liquid to become a promoter?
Yeah, you have to have the back. I mean, I've known promoters who stepped out of the game and lost $20,000 their first show and never bounced back from it. You know, let's say at minimum, if you have 10 fights on the card and you paying $500 each, your purses alone is $10,000. That's before medicals, travel, hotel, food, anything else. So you're already $10,000 to the good. That's before any promotion, not including commission, doctors, security, venue, insurance, medical insurance. You know, you're already $10,000 in the hole right there. That's on a minimum of paying a fighter $500. You know, and I got guys right now that opponents paying costing $3,000-$4,000 each. You know, it's just crazy. People don't understand how much you pay out on a show before the doors open. You know, and it's all a gamble because guess what? If the tickets don't get sold, you're lost out. You know, you're putting all this money up hoping people come see these fights.
Wow, yeah, certainly confirming everything that I've already heard, but guys like you do it, and we appreciate it. Drew, coming back to you, this is a question I ask all fighters who first come on the show. Put on your fantasy matchup hat, if you will. If you ever been on social media, you know these boxing groups, they always have these fantasy fights. If you could make up a fantasy fight where you could go back and test your skill against one fighter, what would it be? And moving forward, who would you want to fight, a top fighter now that you would like to fight in the future?
Well, fantasy fight, we ain't in the same weight class. Would have been somebody like James Toney. But right now, anybody like my weight class, I would have loved to fight like Leo Santa Cruz. You said what?
I said James Toney's kind of big.
I know. You said fantasy. That's one of my favorite. That's one of my favorite. But right now though, I would love to fight like someone like Carl Froch, Carl Frampton, Leo Santa Cruz, who else around that way? Gary Russell, more like that. But I definitely will, or Nito Donaire around that time. Yeah, some I would love to fight, especially. But Leo Santa Cruz would have been on my radar. You know.
Oh, definitely. Good choices there. And obviously, you said you're a fan of James Toney, really a guy, especially when he was younger and lighter, a guy you could really study and pick up a lot of defense from, especially. What are some of your other favorite fighters of the past?
I like Winky, Shane Mosley, Gerald McCullen. I got so many, man. It's so many prospects I like. I got either a lot of fighters that get overshadowed, like Nigel Benn. There's a couple. Yeah, a couple. They was more. I'm more like fighters, man. To be honest with you, like I said, I like the boxing. You know, I like the fight.
Sounds like you like the knockouts.
Yeah, I like to see the fight. You know, I'm more on the crowd pleasing. You know, I like to see a fight. You know. Even though, boxing more long-term, but I like to see a fight.
Oh, definitely. I like a lot of those guys as well. Marcus, how about yourself as a former fighter? Who's one guy you would wish you could go back in time and test your skills against, and who are some of the fighters that you admire the most?
Well, obviously, I'm coming up from the Roy Jones era. I really, at the time, Roy, at one time I think Roy was the best fighter ever. Even though Ray Robinson, is one of the best fighters of all time. But I think what Roy did at his prime exceeds pretty much everything any fighter ever had done. But, I have a lot of fighters I admire, but a fighter that I would rather go back and fight, well, I fought some pretty good fighters. Devin Alexander, Keith Thurman. I fought some tough fights, but Travis Sims, tremendous Travis Sims, great friend of mine still. Monty Clay, I think that would be one of the fights I would probably want to go back and fight. Monty Clay. Yeah. I think that's one. Yeah, I fought Kendall Holt. We keep in contact. Actually, I think he's going to be a guest appearance on my next show. He's coming down and going to do a guest announcement for me.
All righty. Thank you for that. So talk a little bit about what you're talking about, the stuff that is potential for true potential fights. April, May is when you want to get him in. What do you have, Saul? You mentioned the Cusimano show. Talk a little bit about that. So fans can know about that fight and where it's going to be.
That fight's in Lincoln, Rhode Island at the Twin Rivers Casino, May the 11th. Giuseppe Cusimano will be coming back into the ring then. I'm not sure we locked our opponent in yet. We've been dealing with 4 different people trying to discuss. We have no contracts back yet, but that fight is May the 11th at Twin Rivers Casino in Lincoln, Rhode Island. Hopefully we'll get Drew Correll on that card, and then we'll bounce back because we're doing a show here in Virginia late May, early June, depends on how the venues and the commission set up here. And then hopefully we'll be back in the ring right back in July. I got a friend doing shows in Indiana, so we'll probably bounce back in Indiana, and then hopefully we'll just finish the year strong with both fellas.
All righty, thank you for that. Now, Marcus and Drew, you could speak on this as well. There's been a lot of news lately about Canelo and the substance that he found to take, and the cynic out there says, well, all of these fighters are juicing. Talk a little bit about this, in particular what Canelo tested positive for. If he is taking it in a way where it's benefiting him, what benefits do you get from clenbuterol, and how likely is it that it was just tainted meat?
Well, a lot of fighters in Mexico have been tested positive for that because they're sickening the cows. But from my understanding of it, I think that's more for the weight. It don't enhance your power or strength. It more helps humans with the weight loss, if I'm not mistaken. And then the amount that was found in him was very compatible to the amount that would be in the meat, not just him juicing. So that's a thin line right there. I've been on the world-class stage. I've known people on the world-class stage. It's very known that a lot of people juice and a lot of people take steroids. And for him to have passed so many and now just all of a sudden getting caught with something, I mean, it's suspect. I don't like to blame or point the finger at nobody in this game. You know, I was a fighter. I've never juiced, but I mean, it's hard to go on that. You know, it's hard to, you know, I never know what the next man's thinking.
Right. So, in your experience, is the statement valid? Well, all the fighters are juicing anyway, or is that just too broad of a statement to make?
Me personally, it's too broad of a statement. You know, I would never point the finger at no one, or if I've seen you do it, I'm not calling it. You know, I mean, it's hard. You know, I think that's like locker room talk. You know, guys say things, but, you know, is it valid? You know, that's just too hard. You know, that's putting a black eye on the sport itself. You know, I hope they're not. You know, we're not. I mean, I don't condone it in my camps. So I hope everybody want to shoot a fair one. I mean, this is a hurt business. I mean, you can literally lose your life. And I hope no one would want to, you know, take those measures when it's already you're putting enough damage on people. I mean, you punch somebody in the head. Nobody's body's built for that, you know?
Right, definitely. Now, Drew, let's look at it from the aspect as you being a professional fighter. Maybe it's all about tainted meat with Canelo, but there are other fighters that have used this to help them lose weight. It's something that might not enhance their performance and put you in more danger than what you already are, but it's giving them an edge in something that is extremely difficult to do, make weight. Would you just say, listen, if you get caught cheating with this, all right, it might not enhance your performance, it might not put me in any more danger than what I'm already in, but it's giving you an advantage that I don't have in making weight. How would you feel about having to fight an opponent who did that?
Well, me personally, I wouldn't want that because at the end of the day, like you just said, if it's an advantage of making somebody cut weight. You know, we already got to struggle with cutting weight and stuff like that. And personally, I feel like if a person has to do, you know, a little extra activities to make weight, then he need to move up in the weight class. You know, like I said, you got guys that, you know, cut like about 40 pounds. You know, so if that person, you know, has to do that to make that weight, then he might be, you know, need to move up the weight class. You know, at the same time, like we just said, we getting hit in the head. We ain't hitting baseballs. So I wouldn't feel comfortable with it, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Good answer there. All right, last question, and both of you gentlemen can answer this. Marcus, we'll start with you first since you are the trainer, so to speak, and the guy with more experience. If there's one thing in boxing you could change, what would it be?
One thing in boxing I would change. That's a good question right there. I would say, I mean, a more unified commission. Not saying they're all going off one commission, but a more unified, you know. They need to solidify the rules across the board in every state. You know, it's too different when you're going from one state to another. I mean, it's just too much going on. This blood work do 6 months, this one do in a year, this one there. There's too much confusion throughout the commissions. and too many belts is being allowed as a world champion. You know, I mean, break it down. I mean, you got one world champion at the end of the day. You know, you have 4 world champions. I mean, you know, it's just too much. It gives people a chance not for the best to fight the best. You know, and that's one thing I think. And on a fan side of it, I don't think people should get punished by a loss in boxing. I mean, I think boxing is too critical on fighters. One loss don't mean you can't fight. That style just may be a little better than your style and give you issues, you know. But, you know, I think too many good fighters get pushed away because they took a bad loss.
All right, thank you. And, Drew, how about yourself?
This last answer Marcus just said, that was what I was going to say. I think a lot of fighters are stuck in the stage of the Mayweather era. Like, if I lose, you know, or just like the public think you're not good no more, you know, and then it overshadows a lot of people. Like, you know, Mayweather is Mayweather. You have a lot of fighters. I know a lot of fighters that got losses that can fight they tail off, you know. So I just feel like I think a lot of people need to just fight, you know, and don't worry about the losses, because at the end of the day, even the greats have a lot of losses, you know. And sometimes I done seen fighters that lose and came back better than when they was undefeated, you know. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, definitely. Well, the big issue is that they all see what Mayweather has done with his undefeated record, all the hundreds of millions and close to billions of dollars he made. So they fear that they lose that chance to make that much money if they get a loss.
Yeah. And that's true too. But at the same time, I still think if we got 2 fighters that are top prospects, or you know, or at their prime, you know, you're gonna draw numbers regardless. You know, you're gonna draw numbers regardless. You know, Mickey Ward and Torrey Gotti. You know, You know, they had losses, but at the same time, the way they fought, that was one of the best entertaining fights. You know, so and you still have some top fights don't even draw out what they're supposed to be. You know, so you still gotta look at it like that too. So, yeah.
I hear you. I'd much rather watch Ward and Gotti than Mayweather and Pacquiao. You got that right. But thank you, gentlemen. It's been great. Now's your time for some closing remarks. Drew, we'll start with you. What do you have to say in closing?
Thank you though. Like I said, this year we're definitely gonna get it moving on my career and stuff like that. Y'all will hear Drew Correll in the boxing world a lot, and I'm definitely gonna be making a lot of noise this year. Like I said, I want to come for all super bantamweights. I definitely want to change boxing. You know, I want to show everybody I want to fight the best. You know, don't run from nobody. I want everybody to see that I never ran from nobody, and I really want to give the world, you know, show them something new and bring a lot of enlightenment to the small guys weight classes, you know.
All righty, thank you, Drew Correll, the best kept secret in boxing. Hopefully won't be a secret for much longer. Marcus, how about you? What are your closing?
Well, I'd like to appreciate you, Anthony, for the time you spent with us. I'd just like to tell the boxing world, stay tuned, man. We got a big surprise coming out of Virginia, man. We got some tough guys who's going to make a big splash this year. You know, keep your eyes and ears open for Drew Correll, Ronnie Glass, Giuseppe Cusimano. These guys are coming in here. J1 Woods, you know, these are elite fighters that's little known by, you know. I mean, some of the little guys not known as well, but it don't mean the skills out there.
And what about any social media, gentlemen, Twitter, Instagram? You want to throw that out there for us?
Yes, you go to Lucky Punch Promotions on Instagram, Lucky Punch Promotions on Facebook as well, Drew Correll Facebook. I think that's Giuseppe Cusimano on Facebook as well. I think that's what I'm familiar with for those guys, but most definitely, man, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, Correll Drew on Instagram, follow us on Facebook.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you for giving us some of your time. I know both of you are busy, and have a great evening.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. All righty, good stuff there. And how about that for some straight talk, especially the promoter, the side of it. You really got to really appreciate. I mean, a guy like Aram on the grander scale, they have these guys who have staff upon staff, and obviously the finances to do it. But the guys that do it on the smaller scale, Marcus Luck, Joey I, there's a lot of shows, a lot of club shows and all of that. Even Mr. Pelt, we spoke to him in the past and what it takes to promote a boxing card. So good stuff there, and hopefully Drew could get back on track. Sounds like a really talented fighter. Certainly, if he's sparring with the likes of a Gervonta Davis, there has to be something to him. And there is certainly something to Christopher Pearson as he tries to get back on the winning track, and we'll speak with him next. Alrighty, welcome back to Zute's Boxing Talk, the boxing show where we bring you sweet science straight up with no twist. And remember, you could follow me on Twitter at Zute29. That's capital Z-U-T-E and the number 29. You can follow the show on blogtalkradio.com. You can follow Anthony George Radio on iTunes. And remember to go to thegruelingtruth.net where you could also find this show in the archives and plenty of other sports fixes, and also maxboxing.com. Our next guest is a professional fighter with a record of 15-2 with 11 KOs. He has been on television. He has been a highly rated prospect. He just fought on March the 16th, bouncing back from a loss he suffered in February of 2017. He had an impressive performance against Giuseppe Davis, where he stopped Davis in 4 rounds. And he's kind enough to join us tonight, Mr. Christopher Pearson. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how you guys doing? Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure is all ours, Christopher, and we hope you're having a great night tonight. You certainly have been on the stage here. You've fought a lot of veterans already. Take us back a little bit. Talk about the decision you made. When is it that you decided that you wanted to be a professional boxer?
I probably decided I wanted to be professional right after I won the National Silver Gloves for the 3rd time. I think it was 2012 or 2013. And then I had got bronze medal in the Junior Olympics, and getting that bronze medal made me realize, okay, I got another level I can go to. And then, at that age, I started realizing I can actually, make a living and be a world champion, be able to take care of my family, and cement a legacy for myself if I, just push myself as far as I can in the gym and, take this a little more serious. So I'll probably say about 15 or 16 is really when I, put in perspective that I was going to be a professional boxer no matter what. God willing, I stay healthy.
Now, you're a tall southpaw. We know as a professional that is attributes that a lot of fighters would like. It's certainly a tough style to face. Talk a little bit about being such a tall southpaw as an amateur where a lot of the rules are different. Was it beneficial to you, or did you have more issues with the scoring system being such a tall, lanky southpaw?
Well, when I turned to open fighter, when I started, competing against grown men, I wasn't really tall because I was fighting at middleweight, which is 165. So I was fighting guys coming down from 180, 185, sometimes 190, and majority of them was 6 foot or taller. So I was kind of short, but I always had good lateral movement. I always been, rather athletic because I played basketball and football in high school. I was recruited by a couple of D1 schools, so I always was able to use my athleticism along with my boxing IQ to give me the advantage against at the time was a lot bigger opponents. But when I turned professional, trying to campaign at 154, I would say I'm a nice size 154, but by middleweight standards, I wouldn't necessarily say I was tall. I think I'm probably, maybe slightly above average or maybe slightly below one or the other. For the middleweight division, at least.
Right. Well, what about the idea that in where you came from, Ohio? What was the? I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second. I wanted to ask you something different, but let's stick on that for a second. Born and raised in Ohio. Talk a little bit about the boxing tradition there. Did it exist? Was it something that wasn't really a big thing? That's a big football area, and talk a little bit about some of the fighters you admired growing up.
Well, coming from Dayton, Ohio, I think most of our highly touted fighters, kind of went out in the 80s. When I got involved into the sport around 97, it was a few, elite guys out of Dayton, but it wasn't many. Most of the elite fighters were out of Cincinnati, which is, a 45-minute drive. And they got multiple Olympians from Tim Austin. They got multiple world champions as far as back as and prior. You know what I mean? The new guys, of course, the Adrian Boners, the Rasheed Warrens of the world. But Cincinnati was a much more polished city for boxing, and it was real close. So I pretty much, being from Dayton, I honed my skills on the basketball court and in the football field being from here. But I probably didn't really develop all my skills until I started going to Cincinnati to spar with those guys, because it's another level up there compared to Dayton.
All righty, and your pro debut was in Cincinnati back on November 26, 2011. You stopped Steven Chadwick in one round. Talk a little bit about what that was like, fighting in Cincinnati, the U.S. Bank Arena. Pro debut, you get your opponent out of there in one round. Let's go back and reminisce a little bit.
It was an exciting time. That was the night that Adrian Broner won his first world title. And, coming up under those guys, he was always like, Adrian has always been the way he is now, so he was always a character, but he was always a sincerely good-hearted guy who always, kind of took me under his wing. But on that night, he won his first world title. The fight before me was a guy you guys might know of named Deontay Wilder. He got like...
Oh, yeah.
He got like his, he might have still been in the teens at that time of fights, but he had got a knockout, a pretty knockout. So I was just trying to steal the show from him, because up until that point, he had the most dramatic knockout. So I wanted to come in and put my skills on display and try to get a knockout as well. And I was able to, but he probably had the knockout of the night that night. He put a pretty solid guy all the way to sleep. You feel me? My guy, they stopped it. He was on his feet still. I did drop him, but they saved him.
Yeah, I know I always have to try and be professional and not so much a fan, but I always love when people talk positive about Deontay Wilder, because a lot of guys who I talk to don't really do that, and I'm a big fan. But so thank you for that.
I don't know why. He's a guy who he got a late start in boxing. The things that he's been able to do, I think he started boxing, I think he was already 20 years old. And the story is he started, to try to provide and do things for his daughter. So I don't know how you can talk down on a guy like that who literally started behind the 8-ball. Who do you know can get into boxing at the age of 20 and not only become an Olympian, win a medal, and go on to be a world champion and got a chance of being an undisputed world champion? So I would never say nothing negative about Deontay Wilder. He awes me every time he takes another step forward, to be honest.
Indeed, and I'm glad you, a professional fighter, says as much. So you turned pro. That's great. It's on a great night. And your subsequent fights, all great. Only one of those fights go to distance, and then you fight Leonardo Tyner, a fight that was ruled a no contest because both you and Leonardo failed the post-fight drug test. Now, Leonardo is a guy I've had on this show a bunch of times. He spoke a little bit about that as well. Talk a little bit about that fight and the circumstances after it.
It was a no contest because we both obviously tested positive. Of course, it wasn't for steroids; it was for marijuana. But that fight, I was growing up around that time. You know what I mean? I was just I had a newfound kind of fame signing with Floyd Mayweather, and I was coming off a really stellar knockout. It's just being human. I mean, made a couple mistakes. Wasn't really taking my craft as serious as I should, and these are all things that I paid for and I learned from. And moving forward with the fight, it was a decent fight. I really felt like I could have done a lot more. I could have been a lot sharper, but I wasn't necessarily doing all the things I needed to be doing in preparation, obviously. So Tanner gave me a good fight, though. Tanner gives almost everybody a good fight. So I knew coming in he was going to test me, but I kind of was a little, big-headed. In my mind, I was going to go in there and just, walk him down. But I was like, I think we fought on a Friday. That Monday, I was like 170. The contract was 156, so I had to lose all that weight. I had to put myself in a tough bind, you know what I mean? Just being young and undisciplined and relying too much on my skills and not necessarily, a stellar disciplined work ethic. And that's why that fight was a little bit more entertaining and a little closer than it should have been. Ultimately it was still ruled in no contest, but I did get the win. And it was a good learning experience, the whole process, pissing dirty and then dealing with a guy who I was, naturally bigger and more talented than he, gave me a dog fight just because he was hungry, He had an opportunity. Anybody who fight me, even now, with the 2 losses, I feel like anybody who fight me because I had such a stellar amateur pedigree, being linked to guys like Al Haymon and Floyd Mayweather, anybody who fight me feel like I'm like their meal ticket. So I'm going to get everybody's best shot, whether it be another prospect or a contender or a battle-tested veteran. Anybody who fights me is going to give me their best because they feel like they beat me. It's going to put them in another stratosphere, which in most cases is true. Some guys, I know a guy, Eric Walker, beat me and was able to fight for a small belt right after. I know Deloach beat me and got off a little bit more than he asked for by having to fight another tough, rugged guy who was a natural junior middleweight who didn't have to suck himself down in weight, and he couldn't really handle that guy. The guy, I think his name, I know he's out of Jamaica. I think he might train out of Chicago or something. I can't think of his name right now. Gallimore or something like that. Pretty good guy.
Nathaniel Gallimore. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That guy, he doesn't impress me too much for his skill wise, but I love his demeanor. He fights with that chick, with that that almost like arrogance, but not arrogance because I know he prepared himself well. More so like mano a mano, I'm more of a man than you. I like that about him.
All righty, thank you for that. And let's talk about the fight, the last fight you had before March the 16th, a fight that was featured on television, showcases a fight, a couple of prospects. Justin Deloach, you get stopped in the second round. Going into that fight, did you get a full productive training camp? Was everything a go and you were ready to be your best that night, and you just got caught, or did something go wrong going into that fight?
Anybody who know me and seen that fight know that, like I said, I go back to the Eric Walker fight. I wasn't my best self in that fight. Another fight where I had to lose a lot of weight last minute, and I kind of put myself in a bind. But with Deloach, I got my weight down early. I was coming off a year layoff, so I was, my timing wasn't nearly like his because he had fought, I think, 4 or 5 times during my year layoff. But the week before the fight, they changed the weight from 156 to 154, and I ended up coming in like 152, and I know with the IBF, you can't gain 10 pounds overnight. So I kind of really was like hesitant to eat and drink, so I didn't really fully rehydrate. And I just really wasn't, like, even when I was hitting the missing the back, I knew I didn't have that same spark that I'm accustomed to having when I have a good productive weight cut and a good productive training camp. But with that being said, Justin Deloach came out and did exactly what he was supposed to do. It was a showcase for both of us, but I feel like Al more so made a showcase for him because ultimately they taking a guy who hasn't fought him in a year, and I feel like that fight was just more so to give Justin Deloach a good name on his record. And if I came in there and did what I was capable of doing, it would put me right back in the stratosphere that I should be in. So it was kind of like hit or miss for either one of us. It bounced his way, but I didn't get discouraged. It didn't break me at all because I know myself and I know how I felt on fight night, and I know that you feel me. All I gotta do is do what I know to do, and prepare myself the best I can, and just be disciplined. Everything I fall into place. So fighting the guy Davis in my last fight. Older guy, but we fought at 160, so it was no issue. I had my legs under me. I wasn't drained at all, and I was coming off over a year layoff. But it's a difference when you come into the ring hydrated and strong. Like I can really use my gifts. When I fought Deloach, I definitely felt a bit drained, but it wasn't nobody's fault but my own. I agreed to all the terms. I was hungry to get back in the ring, and I was hungry to try to get everything back that night by beating him and winning the belt. But I might have bit off a little bit more than I could chew as far as making the weight. And, it's like that, though. I'm a confident guy. I feel like they call me tomorrow and wanted me to fight Canelo Alvarez, or whoever the top guys are. I know that if I can have a good, 8-week training camp, I can beat anybody. It's just a matter of me, being my best self. But I have the tool set to beat anybody for sure.
Hey, you never know. There might be a date open on May the 5th if Canelo is not allowed to fight. Triple G is going to need somebody, so be ready. You mentioned the more than year layoff, and the consensus belief in boxing is if you take too much time off, you're going to rust. But again, I always talk about my favorite fighter of all time, Marvelous Marvin Hagler. He had a long layoff in between Tommy Hearns and John the Beast Mugambi. And when he was interviewed by Keith Jackson after the fight, one of the first things he said is, first of all, the rest did me good. Talk a little bit about how the rest did you good. How did you benefit from that layoff?
I think it works a couple of different ways. First thing first is being a guy who knows, I'm not new to the sport of boxing, but I'm not old by any means. So, having that rest, it was just built my hunger. Going out the way I went out against Deloach, of course I was motivated to get back. I wanted to get back in the ring as soon as possible, but being on ice forced me to have to, really accept what my reality was at the time and really, figure out what am I going to do to get back to where I should be. And that rest just gave me an opportunity to not necessarily rest, but to just constantly challenge myself every day with not having a date, but to get up and go run, get up and go to the gym and work on my craft. I had to fall back in love with the sport of boxing. I had to fall back in love with the preparation. I had to fall back in love with not necessarily fighting on TV or making a bunch of money, but just more so just being back in love with the sport in general. So I think in that aspect, the break did wonders for me. Now physically, I fought from 2000, the end of 2014. After I fought Stephen Martinez, I had like a slight little catch on my shoulder that was bugging me for like the next 2 years. And every camp I would come out, getting ready to fight, I would just feel like, man, I ain't got the same pop in my left hand. It's really just aggravating. And I just, I had a few fights I just depended more on my right hand, my jabs and hooks. But that rest really felt like everything came back. My shoulders feel great. My legs feel under me and bouncy and springy. And I attribute a lot of that to not just the rest, but doing the things I was supposed to do during the layout, constantly, being in the gym, constantly working and sharpening my tools. So when I got the opportunity, it was a no-brainer. I was going to go over there and do what I was supposed to do, get the guy out the way, and move forward. And moving forward, everybody they put in front of me, I'm going to look to do the same thing. Is make sure my talents and my skills are on full display, and I'm sure if I do that, I'll be in the top. I'll be right there with the top guys in a matter of a year. It's just a matter of just staying down, staying disciplined, do what I need to do.
Talk a little bit about where you're at now in terms of your management team, your training team, the people who are handling you. You feel like you're in a good place there?
Yeah, I'm working with a guy named David Waters. Everyone knows I was with Al Heyman. I was with Floyd Mayweather, and I don't have anything negative to say about those guys. They did a tremendous job with me. I felt like sometimes I could have been a little more active, but some of the things were on them, and the majority of the things were on me. So it was good while it lasted, but ultimately I needed to get a fresh start with some people who believed and recognized what I need as far as being active, and more so I just need to be active. My skills and my ability to take care of the rest, I need to be active. I need to be in the ring. Being with a guy like Dave McGuire, he's working day and night to keep me in the mix, and everything else is really up to me and what I do inside that ring.
All right. Well, if you don't want to say anything negative about them, how about saying something positive about them, especially Heyman, because he's a guy that I also think people like to pile on, and sometimes it's a little bit unfair. So Mayweather and Heyman, what do you have positive to say about them with your experience?
Definitely, Al Heyman has helped bring boxing back to the forefront. With all the show. I'm not sure how many, what dates he has now, but I know over the last few years he had a lot of dates. He put a lot of good fights on TV. Between the PBC and between, Showtime and even I think he had guys that might have fought on Showtime and HBO, if I'm not mistaken. Had guys fighting on ESPN. So he just, he signed a bunch of guys, and I feel like, to the best of his ability, he kept guys, in the mix and kept good fights on TV. So, and above all else, he got fighters paid good money. Maybe some fighters made more money than they were even deserving of. But with a guy like Al Heyman, he know how to pull the strings. So, he put a lot of guys in position to feed their family. So you got to always applaud somebody like that.
All right, thanks a lot for that. And one of the things I love hearing about when I talk to the fighters is some of their sparring stories, other names that they have sparred with. Share some of your more memorable sparring sessions with us.
Well, I'm probably one of the only fighters, as far as welterweight, middleweight, that was on the Mayweather promotional band who didn't get opportunity to spar with Floyd. He told me he was going to work a couple times, but for some reason it never happened. But I did. I was in camp for about 5 weeks with Canelo when he was getting ready to fight Laura, and I was in camp for about 5 weeks. Actually, right before that camp, I was in camp with Cotto when he was getting ready to fight Sergio Martinez, and he went in there and demolished Sergio. And I was really proud of that camp because me and one other guy, we really pushed Cotto that camp. You know what I mean? I was kind of worried because there were certain things I was able to do to him that Cotto, other than Floyd, Cotto probably is of the 2000s. Roy Jones is at the very top, and it's Floyd, and Cotto was probably my third favorite fighter. So being there, channeling with a legend like him, a guy who was my favorite fighter, and being able to do certain things I was able to do. This is before I had a loss. This is right before the Steven Martinez fight, which I feel like still to this day is probably one of my better performances, fighting a young, hungry guy like myself who was able to really put my skills on display. Notably, we was fighting at 156. Anytime I done fought 155 or lower, I've kind of looked a little lackluster. That's just things I've learned about myself over the years, but the camp I had with Cotto was a brilliant camp. My confidence went through the roof. And then when I got there with Canelo, a guy young, around my age, who had already fought Floyd, who's been on the horizon and was right on the verge of superstardom. I did really well with him. We both on the same age, so it was back and forth. Like one day I would get out, the next day it would be, he would edge out, he would do some more, some sharper things, or I would say I would give him the nod that day, but it never was a day where it was never a back-to-back session where one or the other had the better of the other guy. Nobody was able to do it on consecutive sparring days. It was always like, okay, you got this day, all right, I'm gonna get you Wednesday. We spar Monday, I'm gonna get you Wednesday. If I get you Wednesday, he brought it Friday. So I knew coming Monday, like, all right, I don't like the way he was getting out that day. I got to make sure I take it up a notch. You know what I mean? So when he fought Laura, I knew that Laura was going to be able to box him well because that's the thing that was working for me. But I also knew that Canelo is a tremendous body puncher, and he's also very poised on the inside. So he's crafty. He's crafty, and you think, especially being a Spanish fighter, Spanish fighters get the knock of just being guys who just want to walk you down and just throw power shots. Canelo got a lot of nice little wavy moves, little counter shots, sneaky uppercut. You know what I mean? So I picked up some things from him, and I'm sure he picked up some stuff from me too. That was out there in the camp as well, and I got to credit Manny Robles because he put me in position to be in both those camps, and those are two camps that I felt like, grew me as a fighter.
Good stuff there. Now, you worked with Canelo, so I'm going to ask you this. Obviously, he's been in the news lately and for not good stuff. And I don't know if you saw Paulie Malignaggi's comments, but to paraphrase, he basically said, we're all effing idiots if we didn't know Canelo was on something. You're a guy who was close to Canelo and worked with him. Can you care to comment on that?
I I never, being a camp, I never seen anything that was suspicious. I just seen a guy who constantly every day pushed himself. You know what I mean? A guy who has great trainers around him, and they're like a very close-knit family. And one thing they know how to do is work. So if Canelo is using anything, I don't think he necessarily would need it. You know what I mean? Maybe it's a psychological edge, or maybe it's not even. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't want to comment too much because I don't really know the ins and outs. I know that on paper it looks funny, it looks fishy, but I know being under the roof with him and just watching the way he seems like a guy who really loves the sport and tries to do right by the sport. But you never know, man. These guys, you'll be surprised at some of the fighters that have used enhancing drugs. So I don't put nothing past nobody. But I don't have anything. I've never seen anything personally that would make me that would send off red flags or make me read that article and be like, oh, I knew it. Like I don't have any of those stories.
Now, the main benefit for what I'm hearing with what he got caught with is to help you make weight, help you lose weight. So let's shift it back to you and your career. You fought at a heavier weight now. Moving forward, is the middleweight division where you want to be? And did you feel confident in making that weight?
It's just this is my issue. I wanna win belts at multiple weight classes. You know what I mean? Like I said, in the amateurs at 165 is where I did my best work. I beat Olympic gold medalists. I beat bronze medalists. I won the U.S. Nationals. I just any way that I'm able to be, athletic, fast, and strong is the way that I want to be at, because that's where I'm going to be able to get the most bang for my buck. That's where I'm going to be able to really display my talents. But I just believe that I can make 54. It's just I have to be not only just disciplined, I have to have a detailed nutritionist who help me put the right things in my body. Like the way I was making this, just train hard, eat salads, try to eat lean, and then the last few days I'm damn near starving myself, and that's just never the right way because no matter how young you are, me being just getting older, your body ain't gonna keep responding to that. On the Tanner fight, when I sucked myself down over those 4 or 5 days from 70 to 56, I rehydrated to far about 166, 167, but it was just the way I felt. I just didn't feel like I didn't have that bounce. I didn't have that pep in my step, and I didn't even take a punch the same. Like I felt he hit me with a jab. I'm like, man, it's a good shot, but that shit ain't even that hard. I'm sorry, I don't know if I can curse. I'm thinking in my mind like that. Those shots not even that hard, but it's just recovering.
Yeah.
Trying to recover.
You can curse. I've heard it before.
Okay. So with trying to recover from cutting that weight can really zap a fighter. Especially a guy who depends on his legs. You know what I mean? That's the first thing that goes, your legs when you cut weight the wrong way. So, and these are all things that you feel me. I'm not from a big boxing family or a big boxing city. These are things I'm just learning, with experience.
All righty, thank you so much. And we only have about 50 seconds left on the live feed. We're not going to go much over than that, but if you want to hear the rest of this interview, you could go to the archives, which would be on thegruelingtruth.net, iTunes, Anthony George Radio on iTunes, and also blogtalkradio.com. Special thanks to Christian Carto, Marcus Luck, and Drew Correll as well. And as we close out, Chris, when do you think you'll be in the ring next? When, and is there any potential opponents being spoken about?
I'm not sure an opponent, but I'm pretty sure I'll be back. Probably no later than May, probably as early as late April. But either way it goes, whoever they bring to the table at this point, I'm enthusiastic and excited to be back in action and be back in motion. So I don't got no picks, man. Anybody from 154 to 160, we can get it cracking. And I prefer bringing guys in the top 10, top 15, because I'm trying to get back to where I belong, and then go another level up after that. You know what I mean? So I'm all ears. All
righty. Now, you suffered a couple of losses. You already explained, especially with the Deloach fight, a lot of what led to that. I hear all the time fighters say, the loss, I learned a lot from the loss, and I'll ask you directly, especially that the Loach fight. What was the main thing that you learned from it? It sounds like it's about the weight, but is there anything else that you can share with us?
Yeah, I mean the weight is probably the most minuscule excuse you mean. It's a valid and real one because I definitely felt the effects of it, but just I could have just maybe more so just trusted God, trusted that I didn't have to try to rush myself back in position. That if I just kept grooming myself in the gym and took my time, the right opportunity would come for me to shine. And maybe that was just part of God's plan for Deloach. Maybe that was his opportunity to prove what he was made of and to try to level himself up. Ultimately, you feel me, no shade, but he beat me, and then he got another pretty decent guy right after that, and that guy did what I felt like I should have done to him. So I wasn't really sold on Deloach, but I definitely thought that he had some, decent skills, but I felt like I was a different level of talent, and I still feel that way to this day. But I know that the proof is in the pudding and the cream rider to the top, so it's a matter of time before, I get another opportunity to really display what I'm capable of. And that's the day that I look forward to. That's what keeps me motivated every day I wake up. That's what keeps me hitting that road. That's what keeps me in the gym grinding day in and day out, because I know the best of me is yet to be seen. And I'm still, thank the Lord, I'm still young, and I still got a lot of fight in me. So I'm looking forward to, prove all the things I'm speaking on here in the near future.
All righty. Thank you so much, Christopher Pearson, back on the winning track. Look forward to seeing you back in the ring soon. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for all your time. What would you like to say in closing?
In closing, all my followers, all my fans, if you don't already follow me, check me out on Instagram, Chris Pearson _YK, and also on Twitter, _Chris Pearson. That's the only place where I really kind of, speak to the people. And just stay tuned. We got some big things on the horizon. So you guys will be hearing more from Chris Pearson here shortly.
Thank you so much, and you have a good rest of your evening.
You too, brother. Thanks for having me.
All right, our pleasure. All righty, good stuff there. So that just about does it. Just as a reminder, on Thursday we will have a special preview show of Anthony Joshua and Joseph Parker. We'll have a nice, robust panel of fighters and writers and discuss that fight. We will be on the air early Sunday morning, Easter morning, to discuss the fight. I have some good guests lined up for you there. I already have an interview in the can with a very, very special guest, especially if you like the old school style fighting. So that interview is already set to go. I'm not going to share it yet. I'll save it for closer to Easter, and we'll see you again soon. Until then, ring the bell and keep on punching.
Here's some information. You can earn loyalty points at B-Dubs with Blazin' Rewards. And if you hurry, you can earn these points by eating wings, wraps, burgers, and more. Plus, like a QB's top receiver, B-Dubs has the perfect wing sauce pairing for everyone's palate with 21 signature sauces and seasonings. Start earning points with Blazin' Rewards and start earning today. Only at Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings, beer, sports. Please drink responsibly. Here's some information. You can earn loyalty points at B-Dubs with Blazin' Rewards. And if you hurry, you can earn these points by eating wings, wraps, burgers, and more. Plus, like a QB's top receiver, B-Dubs has the perfect wing sauce pairing for everyone's palate with 21 signature sauces and seasonings. Start earning points with Blazin' Rewards and start earning today. Only at Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings, beer, sports. Please drink responsibly.